It's the Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. And with apologies to all you Christmas fans, this is the most wonderful time of the year. Am I right, Wade?
It's pretty dang awesome, man. We talked about it on the show last week. Give me March, give me April. October is the goat, but March and April make a strong case for the best stretch of sports, bar none on the calendar.
That make a great case for a beautiful stretch of the calendar to be a sports talk show host as well, because we don't have to hunt for stuff to talk about. Obviously, the NCAA tournament brackets came out yesterday evening and plenty to discuss, before the games even get played. But there's also, we started SEC baseball season this past weekend. We've got NASCAR, we got soccer, we got golf. There's all sorts of stuff to get into, and we're going to get into all of it here over the next couple of hours as we talk local, regional, and national sports topics. Looking forward to doing so. In the second hour of the show, in fact, we will be joined by Chris Lee of Southeastern 16, again looking at the opening week of the SEC conference baseball season. So looking forward to catching up with him during the 3 o'clock hour. In our next segment, we will be joined by Jerry Palm of CBSSports.com, their bracketologist. See how close he came to the committee and see what he thought about some of the committee's decisions. One in particular.
Go on.
I think there's one that is being discussed at every water cooler in the country, probably, or has been. Maybe it's been discussed ad nauseum. I don't know, but if you are a fan of a certain team about 6 hours or so east of here in Columbia Blue, you've probably been feeling it. So, or maybe Carolina Blue. So, yeah. Interesting decision by the tournament committee to include North Carolina for a lot of the reasons that we've previously discussed with Jerry. So we will retouch on that when we get him on in the next segment. Again, plenty to get to in the brackets, out of the brackets, plenty of brackets. So it's going to be a fun show.
Yeah, busy time of the year, lot to tap into, and that's just to get us started. I mean, you got one more sleep till March Madness gets rolling, and I'm borderline tingling here on this Monday. I do love the fact that we get things kind of started early, just to get a little taste, little dash of TSSAA last week also to really kind of get you into mode. And now, it's full bore. Clear the calendar for the next month. We'll be on the couch watching ball.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, don't bother us. Text us only, don't call. So, yeah. Let's go ahead and dive into this because there is plenty to dive into. Let's get it started, Wade, with this weekend's results and today's schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
Before we get into the rundown, we want to remind you that each and every single Monday, our rundown is brought to you by our friends at Zion Christian Academy. ZCA offers a faith-based, Christ-centered education in Murray County, so give them a call today at 931-388-5831, or you can visit zioneagles.org and schedule an appointment today. That's Zion Christian Academy, prepared for college and equipped for purpose.
Let's get it started with girls basketball action from Friday over at the TSSAA Girls Basketball State Tournament. These would be semifinal results. In Class AA in Class 2A, Westview defeated Loretto 64-39 on Friday. In Class 1A, Greenfield defeated Richland 47-40. Baseball action from Friday. Blackman with a 12-3 win over Clarksville Northwest. Collierville defeated Smyrna 12-1. Columbia Academy blank Providence Christian 11-0. Creekwood with a 10-0 win over Waverly. It was Dobbins Bennett 10, Clarksville Northeast 0, Eagleville 8, Community 6. East Robertson defeated Springfield 7-6. Forest with a 13-0 win over Harpeth. Battle Creek edged Giles County 3-2. Goodpasture with a 7-2 win over White House Heritage. Hampshire in a pitcher's duel defeated East Hickman 17-16. It was Laverne 15, Hunters Lane 6. Lawrence County with an 11-1 win over Lewis County. Liberty Creek defeated White House 5-3. Riverdale defeated McClay of Florida 9-0. Portland with a 13-5 win over Middle Tennessee Christian. Rossview doubled up Mount Juliet 6-3. Mount Pleasant defeated Zion Christian 8-3. Murfreesboro Central with a 10-2 win over Kirkwood. It was Clarksville 11, Niceville out of Florida 0. Columbia Central defeated Oakland 9-6. Perry County down Santa Fe 19-9. Powell with a 10-0 win over Lebanon. It was Cascade 14, Richland 4. Independence and Rockvale played to a 0-0 tie. Watertown 6, Seymour 3. Siegel with a 2-1 win over Dixon County. Stewart's Creek 13, Ensworth 8. Summit defeated Webb School 5-3. It was the Middle Tennessee Monarchs on top of the Tennessee Heat 14-8. And Tullahoma with an 11-0 win over Franklin Road Academy.
Softball action coming in from Friday. Culleoka all over Battle Creek. 18-0 was your final there. Cott County with a 10-0 victory versus Westmoreland on Friday. Also, we saw Columbia with a 7-3 victory versus Cascade. Eagleville on top of Stewart's Creek 9-6. Middle Tennessee Christian picks up 2 wins. 5-1 versus White House. 12-0 versus Laverne. Mount Pleasant, 10 runs to the good versus Frank Hughes. 11-1 was your final there. Community picks up a 9-2 win versus Mount Pleasant in that second showdown. Green Hill and Oakland battled. Could not determine a winner, though. 3-3 was all we had in that showdown. Brentwood with a 3-1 victory versus Oakland, followed up with a 3-2 win versus Siegel. It was Smyrna 5, Domitz Bennett nothing. Smyrna battling back with a 2-1 victory versus Dixon County as well. Community was an 11-1 victor versus Zion Christian. Zion Christian, however, took that personally. Figured up with a 19-3 win on Frank Hughes to cap Friday's softball action. Boys soccer scores coming in from Friday. Warren County and Columbia battled to a 1-1 draw. It was Smyrna defeating Giles County down in Pulaski 2-1. Great contest, it sounded like, in P-Town Friday night. Murfreesboro Central Magnet 2, Nolensville nothing. Siegel picks up a 2-1 win versus Oakland. Blackman picks up a 7-1 win versus Spring Hill. And Zion Christian blanks Loretto 8-0. Men's college basketball from Friday. We left the show in suspense, and it was Jacksonville State knocking off MTSU 70-68. As Jack State eliminates the Blue Raiders in the CUSA semifinals. Also on Friday, Tennessee, more on them later, but the Vols defeat Texas 83-72 in that SEC quarterfinal game at Bridgestone Arena. Women's college basketball, MTSU picked up a 71-63 win versus Western Kentucky, and Belmont took care of Northern Iowa 64-46. Friday, it was the Cavaliers walloping the Grizzlies. Grizz made it close late, though. 133-124 was your final. And in NHL action Friday, it was the Ducks knocking off the Preds 2-1.
On Saturday, baseball action. It was Watertown with a 13-8 win over Morristown West. Providence out of Florida defeated Clarksville 4-0, and Unicoi County defeated Clarksville Northeast 4-1. In softball action, Green Hill and Siegel played to a scoreless tie. Men's basketball action from Bridgestone on Saturday in the SEC tournament semifinals. Tennessee knocked off top seed Auburn 70-65. Women's basketball action tournament play. Belmont in the Missouri Valley defeated Missouri State 76-67. And in the Conference USA Finals down in Huntsville, unfortunately, it was Liberty with a 53-48 win over Middle Tennessee State. On the ice, out west, the LA Kings dealt the Preds a 1-0 decision. And on the hardwood, Memphis defeated Miami 125-91.
Good win for the Grizz on TA jersey retirement night there.
Couldn't lose that one.
Yeah, can't lose with the grandfather in the house. Good stuff for the Grizz on Saturday. Sunday action. Florida did knock off Tennessee 86-77. More on that showdown later in this broadcast in the SEC championship game. In Missouri Valley action, it was Murray State torching Belmont 83-62. Speaking of torching, the Nets were sizzling as Nashville defeats the Union on the road in MLS action. Great win for NSC. 3-1 was your final there. That was our results from the weekend. Let's bring you up to speed with the schedule for today. And some of these games got started early on the baseball diamond as Greenbrier met Bartlesville. That's out of Oklahoma at 11:30 a.m. Also at 11:30 a.m., Soddy Daisy took on Good Pasture. 2 o'clock start times as Greenbrier met Charles Henderson out of Alabama. Good Pasture was set to meet Prattville Christian, also of Alabama. 4 o'clock first pitch between Stewart's Creek and Beach. Same time versus as Warren County takes on Murfreesboro Central Magnet. At 4:30, Middle Tennessee Christian set to travel to the University School of Nashville. 4:30 start time for Oak Ridge versus Alabama Christian. Mars Hill Bible out of Alabama versus Loretto is also set for a 4:30 start time. 5 o'clock first pitch for Macon County at Westmoreland. Bleeds us into 5:30 now. Mount Pleasant traveling to Cornersville. The Middle Tennessee Monarchs will be at Fairview. And capping the 5:30 window is Frank Hughes at Hampshire. 6 p.m. now. Culleoka at Battle Creek. Rockvale traveling to Blackman. Franklin is at Brentwood. West Creek is at Clarksville Academy. FRA is at Columbia Academy. Waverly is traveling to Harpeth this evening. Nolansville traveling to Page. Monterey at Watertown to close your 6 o'clock start times. 6:30 this evening. It'll be Stewart's Creek versus Hendersonville. Summit on the road at Independence. East Nashville at John Overton. Webb School at Providence Christian. Eagleville is traveling to Spring Hill. Rossview is on the road at Springfield. Columbia making the trip over to Tullahoma tonight at 6:30. And we don't have start times listed, but our schedule does show Centennial at Ravenwood and Zion Christian at Santa Fe.
In softball action this evening, or right now, depending on who you're concerned with, Demopolis out of Alabama and Lawrence County are playing right now. That was a 2 o'clock start. That's to be followed by Gulf Shores of Alabama and Lawrence County at 4. I'm guessing that's somewhere down in the Gulf Shores, Orange Beach area, since I believe Lawrence County is on spring break right now. Pope John Paul II plays at Ezel Harding. That's a 5 o'clock first pitch. Also at 5, Culleoka is at Fayetteville. Station Camp travels to Gallatin. Stewart's Creek is at Joe Burns. Mount Pleasant is hosting Wayne County. Westmoreland goes to Portland. And Ravenwood is at Summit. Again, all of those at 5 o'clock. At 5:30, Blackman travels to Murfreesboro Central. 6 o'clock start for Battle Creek and Columbia Central at Columbia Central. Also at 6, Eagleville takes on Columbia Academy at CA. 6:30 start for Oakland hosting Siegel. And Summertown plays TBD. Again, I'm thinking that one's down on the beach somewhere at some time against somebody. In the association, Memphis goes out west taking on the Sacramento Kings. That's a 9 o'clock tip. Get you a nap in once we go off, not before. But that one starts at 9 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, that is your rundown. Your top story brought to you as always by the fine folks over at Piggly Wiggly in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options available from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. Also, their hand-cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. And as we just mentioned in the rundown, the Nashville Soccer Club, all of a sudden, 2-1-1. With a 3-1 victory over the previously unbeaten Philadelphia Union on the Union's pitch at Subaru Park. It was Nashville's first ever win at Philadelphia. Sam Surridge got a goal. Ahmed Kasem got a goal. And Hani Mukhtar with a late goal on a penalty kick. And Joe Willis shut down a penalty kick late and stopped a shot during added time for the 3-1 victory. So NSC spread the scoring around in that big road win. Again, their first ever win at Philadelphia. I don't know how many they had lost at Philadelphia. Wade?
Guess as good as mine. A lot.
Okay. A lot. Okay. But yeah, big win for them, obviously, after the 0-1-1 start that we had talked about.
No doubt about it. And, you know, we closed the show Friday and you kind of asked, and I said, hey, don't be surprised if Nashville, maybe they at least have a chance with Callahan to go on the road and maybe win a game like this by scoring 2 or dare I say 3 goals. But also don't be surprised if they lose this game by giving up 2 or 3 goals. And we saw the kind of very best of what NSC is capable of. Getting a win like this versus the top team in the MLS, I mean, this is why you hire B.J. Callahan, and this is what you hope to get out of this hire, is playing kind of attacking football, dare I say, aggressive offensively, and kind of a departure from the Gary Smith era. There were some controversial calls in this contest, but NSC kind of did what they needed to do, especially that late penalty, was one that Union fans weren't too happy. There was even some debris littered on the field there at the Subaru. But NSC gets the win, and they're kind of rolling all of a sudden. And Valera has told us a number of times, it does not take much to really kind of completely turn things, especially because we're so early in the season. 2 weeks ago, Nashville kind of lifeless performances in their first 2 matches offensively. Now all of a sudden, you kind of wonder where they can go. Things suddenly look bright for NSC. That was a fantastic road win. Philadelphia slides to second in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I mean, when you win a game like that, especially this early in the season, it just kind of feels like it opens up all sorts of possibilities. We know the Union is a good squad, and to go up there and get a win someplace that you hadn't won before, it just kind of gets the positive vibes going, you would think.
Yeah, Nashville, their last couple matches in Subaru Park, they had gotten blanked last year 3-0. They had drawn a couple of years ago. And then previously, some of those playoff matches, that Eastern Conference semifinals match that I referenced, both one leg at Nissan and then the other, Nissan Stadium back then, that is, and then the other at Subaru Park. They had all been kind of played close, but the Union had Nashville's number. But the tables were turned in dramatic fashion. That is a massive win that maybe, across the MLS kind of makes you re-examine the Union a little bit. Also kind of maybe, for a team that was, by some experts, predicted to kind of maybe be treading water at best this year. Now, all of a sudden, to your point, yeah, you kind of dare to dream a little bit if you're in SC.
And with Montreal coming here on Saturday, looking to just keep stacking wins, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, Montreal's coming in right there at the bottom of the table. I mean, then again, Nashville was at the bottom of the table just a couple of weeks ago. So, I mean, we're still so early in the season. It's really kind of hard to get a grasp on who's really good, who's really bad. But a very inspiring performance. Remember, I closed the show by saying you would absolutely 100% take a draw on the road at Philly. Especially, you certainly would take that over, obviously, losing. Mm-hmm. We've never really been in a position coaching-wise to kind of think about Nashville going out and grabbing a win versus a perceived top-level, top-tier club. And that's what NSC did. And so, if nothing else, this seemed, at least for one match, it validated all the kind of positivity that was radiating out of the Callahan hire.
Absolutely. Let's take a break here on the Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, we'll be joined by Jerry Palm of CBSSports.com, talking a little post-bracketology as the brackets are now out. So stick around. I'm looking forward to getting some of Jerry's input into what we've got going forward here in the field of 68. We'll see you on the other side of this break.
Step into the Lionel retail store at Opry Mills, Nashville, and you'll be captivated by all the magic of the 123-year history of Lionel trains. Whether you're already a train enthusiast or just getting started, Lionel will energize your love for trains. NASCAR fan? Come check out your local Lionel station to learn all there is to know about model trains and die-cast NASCAR collectibles. Visit nashville.lionel.com or call 615-455-9399.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
You're seeing the signs too, right?
What signs?
We continue the Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. And we now have with us the CBSSports.com bracketologist, the inimitable Jerry Palm. Jerry, good afternoon.
Hey, how's it going?
What's up, Jerry?
Hey, I would imagine it's going pretty well for you right now because, I mean, things calm down for a bracketologist once the bracket is out, right?
Yes. Yeah, we the bulk of our work is done. I'm going to go on the road for the tournament, but that's a lot easier than trying to predict who's going to be in the tournament. I know where I'm going. So
how did your predictions come out, Jerry?
I actually missed 3 teams this year, but I would say the committee missed 2 and I missed 1.
I like that.
It's I had Boise State in instead of Xavier. Those were the 2 teams on my cut line, and the committee had them just back the opposite. They also had Texas in the tournament. There's not much of a case for Texas, something of one, but really not a very good one. And they, of course, had North Carolina in, which is just egregiously bad. And that's, I can't do anything about it. I can't explain it away. But North Carolina is, in the long time that I've been doing this, I can't think of another team that so conclusively proved it was not an NCAA tournament team and then still got in the field. There's no real explanation. There's no justification. I can't tell you why they're in. There's nothing there that says this is an NCAA tournament team.
Yeah, Jerry, you just answered my question basically, because I was going to ask you, and you used the term egregious when you were describing the situation. I was going to ask you if you could come up with a equally or more egregious inclusion in the field than 25 North Carolina, and basically you're telling me no.
Not off the top of my head. If I do some research, maybe I'd find one. But there definitely has not been a team that proved so thoroughly that they were not an NCAA tournament team and still got in. I mean, there might be other teams that got in that probably shouldn't have, but nobody had as many chances to prove they were an NCAA tournament team and failed so spectacularly in doing so and then still got in.
But they won 8 of what? Their last 10? Jerry, come on.
Yeah, they beat ACC tomato cans in 8 of their last 10. I mean, yeah. So of course they won 8 of their last 10. The problem is, and at least partially in their defense, half of their quad 1 losses were to teams on the top 2 lines of the bracket. And 3 of those are Duke. But so they lost to some pretty good teams. But they also have 3 losses to teams that went nowhere, and 2 of those are among that quad 1 list of teams. The third one is Stanford at home, which is a quad 3 loss. But they only beat 1 team that made the NCAA tournament as an at-large or in that part of the bracket. And the only other team they beat that was in the bracket was American. American won the Patriot League title. And they were also the lowest rated team on North Carolina's schedule. So that's the 2. NCAA teams that they beat, UCLA and American. And I don't know. I mean, what do you have to do to play your way out of this tournament? If North Carolina can't do it with what they did this year, how do you actually play your way out?
It makes you wonder, right, Jerry? And also, if you're trying to maybe potentially look, obviously there's going to be a ton of discussion about the athletic director and Mr. Bubba Cunningham and his involvement with the committee, of course. But
Right.
I'm also curious, does the committee factor in, the kind of quirky way that the ACC lost to the ACC tournament loss to Duke kind of went down? Does that play any bearing, or is this purely just kind of, in theory, you look at the numbers and the numbers are what the numbers are?
Losses are losses.
Okay.
They lost that game. It was nice that they were in it, for as long as they were, with Duke, that 2 players down, most notably, of course, Cooper Flagg. But, losses are losses. It's a heartbreaking loss to be sure, but losses are losses. No, so that's not a factor. But I can't tell you what is a factor because they're in for no apparent reason. Bubba Cunningham, as the chairman of the committee, and this would apply to any committee member, if the school that you work for or the conference that you work for, in the case of commissioners, if your team or teams in your league are being talked about, you have to leave the room. You're not part of the discussions at all. And I know the NCAA is very strict about that. So Bubba, whatever influence he may have had would have had to have been telepathic because he was out of the room.
That said, though, Jerry, because I was thinking a lot about that earlier today when I was thinking about this whole situation. There were a lot of rooms that my dad wasn't in, but that didn't mean he didn't have an influence on me. I mean, just
Right.
because Bubba was out of the room, did that mean? I mean, when he comes back in the room and he asks, "Well, how'd it go?" Well, your guys are out. I mean,
He won't have to see you won't have to ask. He'll be able to see on whatever boards they have up how it went. And he can't even comment on how it went. I mean, you really can't talk at all about his team. So he can see it, but they got to move on. I understand all that, and I can't look. I will defend their policies and their execution of their policies,
right?
Because I'm totally convinced that they stick to the letter of the law. But what happens, in terms of subtle influence, or like you said, we know he's in the room with us having discussions. We have to be able to talk to him later, kind of a thing. It's I can't speak to that kind of more subtle influence and how that works, and I can't defend it. But I can't defend this selection at all. So any conspiracy theory you want to come up with, go for it.
Don't necessarily have a conspiracy theory. I mean, the West Virginia governor apparently has something, but
yeah. That's the most egregious team omitted. Out of my bracket, it was them and Boise State and Indiana. And there's a case to eliminate Boise State, and there's a case against Indiana, I suppose, but not for North Carolina. I mean, for other teams, maybe, sure, but not for North Carolina. And, if the West Virginia governor's mad, well, I don't blame him for being mad. But, whatever dust he wants to kick up isn't going to do anything.
Oh, no. It's Jerry Palmer, CBSSports.com, joining us here on Main Street Sports today as we mull over who is in and who is not in the NCAA field of 68 that will start up tomorrow night, with the first 4, including another team that didn't have a whole lot to stand on, as Texas takes on Xavier in an 11 seed matchup.
Yeah, and you're right about Texas. Texas, the committee doesn't look at this particular stat I'm going to give you, but I also don't think it's a coincidence that nobody like this has ever gotten in prior to this. Texas is 19-15 overall, which is historically 4 games above 500 is like the bare minimum for inclusion, and only one team in 30 years got in that wasn't 4 games above 500. But when you take away their quad 4 games, they're 12-15, 3 games below 500 against teams that are a bare level of competence compared to the rest of Division I. So that's that's pretty tough to swallow. 15 losses, and for me, if as a committee member, if I were a committee member, I would look at their quad 2 losses, and I would see 3 home games against teams they were competing with for a spot in the field. 2 of them in March that they just didn't, they didn't win, and a couple of them, I think they didn't even really compete. So, for me, you had it. It was right there for you to take, and on your home floor, and they didn't do it. Now they got a couple nice wins in their conference tournament, but for me, that still wasn't enough. I think they should have had to beat Tennessee, and then we can talk about it again.
Yeah, and also, if you really want to add a little extra case against them, they got blasted on the road. Granted, it was on the road, but a loss to South Carolina seemingly was it.
Yeah, well, that's one of their quad 2 losses, and that's one of them. And those 3 home games I talked about are on that list as well. And yeah, that's a bad loss. There's just no getting around it.
Yeah, Arkansas, Georgia, Oklahoma, all at home, and like you said, all right there in that quad 2, which is an ugly 3 and 5. Can we look to any of their 7 wins in quad 1? Is there any one in particular that maybe conceivably got them over the hump? Was it one of those? Was it maybe the win versus Texas A&M, hypothetically, in the tournament that did the deed for them?
Well, no, it's a collection. I don't know that it's any one. I doubt they sat there and said, well, okay, they've got that win, so we're just going to ignore the rest of this and take them. But, all of their wins, all of their quad 1 wins are good wins. There's no, because like Indiana, for example, has got 5 quad 1 wins, but the only teams that made the NCAA tournament were Michigan State, who they beat on the road, and that's an excellent win. And they beat Purdue at home, and that's another pretty good win. So those are good wins. But the other 3 quad 1 wins, 2 are Ohio State, a team they were competing with. So those are good too. And then Penn State. And Penn State didn't even qualify for the Big Ten tournament. So that's not quite, as good as some of these other wins. But still, it's the wins are nice. But if you're going to play a difficult schedule, which they did, and a lot of that is in their league, but not all of it. You got to keep your head above water. You should be able to get like within a game of 500, and they didn't, and they had no one but themselves to blame for that. There wasn't an injury, there wasn't anything else going on that would have given them a leg to stand on in terms of maybe an excuse, but no, they just didn't do the job. They also lost to UConn at home, which was the 2-time reigning champion, but still not this year. They're an 8 or 9 seed this year.
Jerry Palm of CBSSports.com joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Real quick, Jerry, given that Texas did get in, the Southeastern Conference got 14 teams in, how did you feel like they did in terms of getting them spread out, which was obviously a challenge?
Oh, yeah, that's a nightmare. You can only do so much. It's and I know that they put a lot of work into that. I've been doing that every day, bracketing 13 SEC teams, or 12 SEC teams, and it's a real chore. And there are rules that many teams don't allow you to follow, so you do the best you can. The teams in the top 4 of the bracket, you try to keep top 4 seeds in the regions. You try to keep separated to the point where at least they don't meet until the Elite 8. And you try and do that down bracket too, but it's a little harder. But you're just trying to keep teams from meeting too early in the tournament, so that you're not knocking out half the league just because they bracketed badly.
Jerry, real quick, on Sunday you woke up and you had Michigan as a 3 seed, you had Purdue as a 5. Talk me through how the Wolverines end up seeded 5th by the conclusion of this thing Sunday.
I thought that was a little harsh. Not too bad. I could see him as a 4, but I had him as a 3. I thought they could be a 4. They probably deserve better than 5, but 4 and 5 are about the same. So it's I think probably they did not give them enough credit for the win on Sunday, and not because it's a championship game, but because that's a pretty good win. That Maryland team is really good. I'm sorry, Wisconsin team they beat Maryland before that. That Wisconsin team is really good, and they're a 3 seed. So I felt like overall Michigan probably should have been given a little more credit. But they have a couple of quad 2 losses that are not great. Their loss at Minnesota is pretty bad. The Wake Forest loss, not so great. So I assume they must have been dinged a little for that. And some of their quad one wins are like Nebraska and USC and non-tournament teams, and I'm sure that was taken into account as well.
What was the other biggest disparity in your seed line, I guess, if you will, for teams in the total field we got here?
I don't know that I remember anything being like more than two. But, I'll have some that are ones, usually one off if I'm off or two off. But I don't very often, get more than that. I don't think I had anybody more than two off this year.
Good job by you.
So I'll take that.
Yeah. Jerry, you'd see with the college football playoff that they've got media members included on that committee. Do you think there will ever be a day where that will be the case with the NCAA basketball committee?
They have a retired media member on that committee. They could, at some point, if they felt like that would help them, then maybe that would be worth doing. Somebody like me would be a real pain in the butt. So they probably have to get, there are a lot of us in the media that study brackets, even if they don't write specifically about brackets. People like Seth Davis know a lot about it. But it's, I don't know. I would love to be on the committee. I think they would hate having me on the committee.
I like it. I like that. Jerry Palm of CBSSports.com joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Jerry, thank you so much for spending time with us. We really appreciate your time and your expertise, and look forward to catching up with you.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Anytime.
Thank you, Jerry.
Man. Let's take a break here as the Monday Mirror continues on Main Street Sports today, and as the basketball talk continues. Can't imagine why, but stick around when we come back.
Only in Smashville are opponents welcomed with some good old-fashioned Southern hospitality. We'll give you a hand, cheer you on. Hey, we'll even leave a light on.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
A game without a crowd is just a scrimmage. A performance without an audience is just a rehearsal. Without your presence, high school sports and the performing arts aren't possible. Ensure that these essential extracurricular activities continue to enrich the lives of students in Tennessee. Purchase a ticket to your local high school's game or performance.
This message presented by the TSSAA.
Monday continues here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We just got done talking with Jerry Palm of CBSSports.com, talking about Texas wasn't as egregious as North Carolina, but didn't necessarily deserve to be one of the 14 teams from the Southeastern Conference to get into this NCAA tournament field. They did. There are 14 teams, and I don't think anybody has, well, the Big East had 11 in 2011 when they had 16 members. Other than that, no one has had double-digit teams out of their conference make the field. So 14 of 16. By percentage, that's the best ever. Back in 1991, the Big East put 7 of its 9 teams in. So by any number, any metric that you want to look at, this is the best performance by a Division I men's basketball conference in terms of the NCAA tournament ever.
In terms of getting them in the tournament. Now the fun begins, right?
There we go. And you know, that's what everybody's going to be looking at, obviously. I mean, okay, yeah, you got 14 in. What did you do with them? And that's a fair question.
And I'm trying to see DraftKings had the odds last week. You know, you can bet SEC versus the field, and it was pretty evenly split. So this is going to be fun because it feels like more than ever this tournament is not necessarily wide open. There's at the end of the day, there's only still a handful of teams that can realistically win this thing. But it feels like we're in store, and it also, for the first time in 2 years, feels like we don't really have a team, you know, kind of already forecast in UConn that is almost inconceivably going to win this thing. So in that regard, it feels a little refreshing after a couple of years.
I guess the question next becomes, you know, how many teams have to advance? I mean, if the SEC claimed a national championship, would that be enough to back up all of this? Or do you have to have like 2 teams in the Final Four, you know, 5 in the Elite 8, something like that? I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting measuring stick that different folks come up with to try to, you know, either broadcast the success of the league or its failure despite getting 14 teams in.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the beauty of talk shows and the internet, right? Is you can totally bend whatever argument you want in your favor. Cool, Florida wins the whole thing. Well, how did the rest of the conference do? And they didn't do so hot. Well, they're not that great of a league after all. That's the way you can frame that. Or SEC sends 3 teams to the Final Four, and guess what? Houston wins it all. Well, you know, maybe they weren't so good after all. I mean, you can bend this every which way, and that's what makes this time of the year so fun. Is it's a one and done format. You have, you know, 30 plus games to kind of maybe give your best guess, but on any given afternoon, you know, ask Yale and Auburn last year. I mean, any given afternoon, anything could happen. And so this will be a fun tournament. That's what makes this time of the year so special, is the fact that nobody has a clue what's really going to play out.
I guess the one thing that having 14 teams in the field does is it gives you a better chance to claim a national championship, which the Southeastern Conference has not done since 2012.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly would like your shot. And I mean, realistically, though, you know, the numbers, the magic Ken Pom formula is out. And realistically, the only teams that have any shot of winning this thing from the SEC, to your point, are luckily 3. You got Florida, Auburn, and Tennessee, both kind of meeting those magical criteria of being in the top 20 offensively, top 30 defensively. Alabama just sitting, I mean, so now we're splitting hairs, right? Because Alabama's just right outside at 31 on the defensive side, so you maybe could include them. But I mean, hey, if you got 4 absolute hosses, yeah, you feel pretty confident in your shot. You know, nobody's sitting here predicting or thinking Vanderbilt is going to go out and cut down the nets. I don't think a lot of folks, you know, are thinking maybe certainly a Texas or, you know, Ole Miss, you know, going to maybe make some noise. But you got some absolute top-end heat at your disposal. So if you're an SEC fan, or a supporter of an SEC school, and you kind of buy into the, well, once my team's out, I'll just root for the league, you do have some bullets at your disposal this year.
You do indeed. There's plenty in the clip. Speaking of Vanderbilt, the 10th seeded Commodores opening against number 7 St. Mary's, and, you know, you got to beat somebody anyway. But it seems like it's guarded optimism for the Commodores in that regard. In Mark Byington's first season, this might not be the most favorable matchup for the Commodores.
It's not. And, St. Mary's is about a 4-point favorite in this game. But, I mean, every team is good in theory to get into this thing, especially when you're talking about the at-larges. And Vanderbilt, you've been playing with house money all year. So if you're Vanderbilt and you're frustrated with the seed, if you're frustrated if your team bows out in the first round, you just kind of got to take a little bit of a reality check, because you could have the alternative, and that's where you were this time last year.
And for a few years before that. So
a few years before that. So, I mean, and, you're Vanderbilt too. You're kind of scratching the surface. And, in theory, Byington going to hang around for a little bit here, maybe start getting his guys rolling. I mean, in theory, you're going nowhere but up. So this is all gravy at this point, if you're Vanderbilt.
Absolutely. You got to love this in year one of Byington coming in from James Madison, where he had obviously had some success over there as well. You mentioned Yale. Wonder how thrilled they were in College Station to see them come up opposite the Aggies in a 4-13 matchup.
Yeah, this is not quite, it doesn't feel like the Yale team from last year, losing Wolf, who's now a part of the Michigan team, but this is a team that's on your radar. Yale might have obviously outed themselves in many regards by beating Auburn. But if you're Texas A&M, I heard somebody mention this earlier. There's not going to be a better. How many layers, how many pieces are going to be on Buzz's suit for this game? He ain't going to go out. I mean, he's going to dress to the absolute nines to try and show off for the Ivy League folks here. So you got a massive fashion battle at your disposal here. Feels like Texas A&M should be safe, but you never know. And certainly the Bulldogs pulled off a big one last year, knocking off Auburn.
So this one isn't a quarter zip game for Buzz.
I don't know what's beyond 3-piece. He will have the monocle going. I mean, he'll have the pocket watch. I mean, he's going to look like a train conductor, because that's his get up for SEC games. You have got to bring it. When you got billions of dollars in endowment on the other side versus in Yale, you got to bring your A game here.
Does Buzz come out in a bowler?
You got to empty the clip, man, because if you're going to lose, you at least want to, impress somebody from Yale. Maybe you could use that parlay down the road. So feels like Texas A&M should be safe, but obviously we saw the Bulldogs do it last year.
How intrigued are you by Kansas, Arkansas?
This quad is loaded. I mean, this is going to be mind-boggling, right? This is the battle. The winner of this game, for all intents and purposes, gets to face Rick Pitino in the next round. How much fun is this going to be? And the only way this gets ruffled up is the Omaha coach, coming out and delivering the people's elbow on the trash can again if they upset St. John's. 3 of the 4 coaches in this quad are going to be – I mean, that alone is must-see TV just to see what happens with the coaches on the sidelines, right?
Oh, man. It's just crazy as you look across this bracket to see. I mean, you talk about 14 teams, but then again, when you look across this bracket and you see them and they're everywhere, and it's like, good Lord, that's crazy. I'm kind of intrigued by Ole Miss getting the winner of one of the first 4 games in San Diego State and North Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss is a team we've seen when they're at their best. This is a team that could potentially make a run if they kind of start getting the magic and pulling the right notes. But that is a tough draw too. North Carolina, obviously, in theory, is going to want to come out and try and play their absolute best after kind of getting their name dragged in the mud the last 48 hours by the time we tip off. So you assume they're going to give San Diego State all they have. But that's a good, Aztec team out there as well. So the winner of that game will be battle-tested, and Ole Miss certainly will have to be on their P's and Q's in that one.
The winner of that one, by the way, gets number 3 Iowa State and number 14 Lipscomb.
I don't think that Lipscomb is going to necessarily beat Iowa State, but Iowa State, we talked about it last week, massive injury issues, and those are going to continue throughout the rest of the tournament. And so if Lipscomb, with Keyshawn Gilbert not going to be available for the entirety of the tournament, that is a massive, massive blow for Iowa State, who is a team that is in that magic KenPom formula, those magical 8 teams. But without Gilbert, it certainly feels like that may potentially dwindle. And you got to wonder, if Lindy Acuff and the guys can maybe potentially give the Cyclones a little run for their money.
Yeah. Wade, have you started mapping out your viewing yet? Past tomorrow night and Wednesday night?
I mean, hey, I'll get what I can during our show on Thursday and Friday from the Murphy Center, and we'll just let the rest live with it be, right? Because you kind of got wall to wall action. It'll be fascinating to see kind of how all these games get underway. But I mean, I just think, we talked about it at the very start of the show. This is the best time of the year. It doesn't matter what teams are playing. I feel like my brain is already a little bit warped after watching so much obscure conference tournament action over the weekend. And then it kind of feels like we just have burst through a cloud and hit this random wall today. That's why I'm so pumped for tomorrow night as we get right back in the thick of things.
As people like to joke, this is a time of year when everybody figures out where true TV is.
I mean, this is the time of year while that goes on. I mean, this is the time of year also, don't forget. I mean, this is why the doctors, offer the vasectomies on discounts, right? I mean, you got guys signing up to get the discount so you can sit at home and rest up for the next couple of days. Lots of injuries, lots of mysterious ailments and illnesses across the country. This is obviously fake spreadsheet season too, so everybody can just pop that up when the boss kind of peeps around the corner. But really, yeah, you're just got YouTube TV pulled up and watching all the games on Multiview.
Frozen peas are at a premium this week.
No doubt, man. If you scheduled one before or after this time of the year, I question a little bit of your judgment because this is what that's made for.
Not the best scheduling on your part. Houston and SIU Edwardsville. I believe Edwardsville, are they the Cougars as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Cougars are going to win that one. That's a 2:00 start on TBS on Thursday. Let's see, Tennessee and Wofford at 6:50 on TNT. I believe these times are all central. Let's see what we got. Nope, those are Eastern times. So it'll be Houston and Edwardsville at 1 on TBS. Tennessee and Wofford at 5:50 on TNT. That Kansas-Arkansas game is at 6:10 Thursday on CBS. A&M and Yale is at 6:25. The late games, Wade, your Wolverines and number 12 UC San Diego. You're going to have to try to work a nap in. That's a 9:00 start on TBS.
Going to be a fantastic game. Michigan is all of a sudden, after absolutely reeling and losing the Big Ten regular season championship in the last 2 weeks of the season, pulls it all together and they get rewarded. As Jerry just said, kind of getting shafted 2 seeds and then also getting one of the better teams, certainly one of the better double-digit seeds in the entire tournament. Michigan's only favored by 2.5. The only saving grace, Mo, is Michigan's got those 2-footers, obviously, in Golden and Wolf that I mentioned a moment ago. San Diego's entire starting 5 reminiscent of Vanderbilt. They are very, very small. Not saying Michigan will win. It's going to be a fun game. If I could take my fandom out of it, it would be one of the more entertaining games, I think, of the entire first round. But they hopefully got the goods to get that one playing out in Denver.
I was watching the CBS bracket reveal yesterday, and I don't remember if it was Seth Davis or Clark Kellogg, but somebody picked UC San Diego to win that game and win their next one as well. So
yeah, Michigan has lived by winning close games all season. And I mean, that's kind of what they did, to ascend to the top of the Big Ten standings. And then that's what cost them in the final 2 weeks of the season to lose the regular season championship. But San Diego, we've talked about them for the last 2 weeks now. And again, they are rolling. They're playing some of their best ball by far. And they will not be intimidated. And Michigan still is in a Vanderbilt type situation, right? I mean, they were last place in the Big Ten last year. And now they're in first place after winning the conference tournament yesterday. But they still are a semi-flawed team. They're not great. They're not unbeatable by any means, especially versus a team as battle-tested as San Diego.
But at least Dusty May is going to be there for a minute. They extended him, right?
Yep, he's extended. I mean, so a chance to, kind of get things rolling. But it was a fantastic job going from worst to first.
Yeah. Friday, you've got Iowa State and Lipscomb in the 12:30 game on TNT. At 1:00 on TBS, number 5 Memphis and number 12 Colorado State. And this is another one where the double-digit seed is predicted to advance. Apparently, some folks feel like Memphis is kind of vulnerable.
That and Colorado State is a really, really good team. And we just talked with Jerry about Boise State. That was one of the better conference tournament games all weekend as Colorado State hangs on to win by 3 on Saturday night. But the Rams are legit. They're for real. They have a loaded team, and they've got some seasoning behind them. Playing out in Seattle, I wonder how many Memphis fans will be up for making that trip. But Memphis is obviously a fantastic team, too, not to diminish what they have done this season by any means. We only hear about Memphis when they lose because they're kind of expected to take care of everything else. And luckily for them, they only lost 5 times this season. But that will be a great game. Yeah, Colorado State is the favorite in that game coming in despite being the 12th seed.
Wow. St. Mary's and Vanderbilt, that's a 2:15 tip on True TV. You got to go hunt that up again. Number 3, Kentucky. Number 14, Troy is a 6:10 tip-off Friday on CBS. CBS hoping to cash in on some Troy as Oakland 2.0 maybe, looks like. Picking that one up. What else? UConn and Oklahoma is an 8:25 start on Friday night on TNT. And I think there will be a number of Sooners fans for a number of reasons, including the anti-Hurley type faction.
Yeah, this could be an epic game. And, UConn has, I heard it put like this. Or, I mean, if what happens, what happened to them at the end of the game as Creighton, was dunking, and you kind of got to live with the consequences, right? And that's what has made this UConn team in many ways so interesting to watch. They've embraced kind of the heel role. And so they got a little tables turned on them. But, I mean, you kind of just have to live with that. You'd be upset if Creighton wasn't trying to rub it in your face. That's kind of the level that you've ascended to if you're UConn. They'll get their best shot from Oklahoma. They're still favored to win that game. And what will be fascinating is if they can somehow scratch a win across, all but assured of getting maybe the hottest team in the country right now in the Florida Gators. That will be a massive matchup. Can Florida, a team that is a very popular pick to cut down the nets, can they dethrone a team that hasn't lost in a million years, it seems like, in the tournament?
Yeah. Got some fun stuff coming up again starting tomorrow night with the first 4 up in Dayton, and it goes for the next 3 weeks. Looking forward to it. Hour number 1 is in the books here on the Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back for hour number 2, it's still basketball, but not necessarily of the NCAA men's Division I variety. Stick around.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vilai Saisuka, CEO and founder of Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee here in Murfreesboro. We offer foot and ankle care from ingrown toenails to diabetic foot wounds. We also fix ankle fractures and things like that.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today. Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
It's the second hour of the Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. The women's NCAA tournament bracket was announced yesterday evening as well, and it's hard to really know who is less happy with their number one seed, Dawn Staley at South Carolina or Lindsey Gottlieb at USC, because UCLA is the overall number one. South Carolina got the number 2 overall seed, number 1 in the Birmingham region. USC is the number 4 overall seed. They are also a number 1. But if seeds hold, USC would face UCLA in the national semifinals. Now, that's USC, which won both of those matchups during the regular season before falling to USC in the to UCLA in the Big Ten championship game. So she's not happy.
Mm-hmm.
Dawn Staley, again, South Carolina, the number 2 overall, they're not happy. And I mean, I remember there was a time when if you were the number 1, that was really all that mattered. But I never thought that I'd be a 1 seed and feel disrespected. I thought there would be a very little chance that we'd be the number 4 overall number 1. You tell me if you think that bracket that we got should have been that was. This was not on my bingo card to be a little frustrated after being a 1 seed, Gottlieb said. And I guess that frustration comes back to, again, the prospect of seeing UCLA in the semifinals should things play out. And there's a lot of, I guess, a lot of conversation about, does the tournament or should the tournament mean more than the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, these coaches obviously are upset, but that speaks to the power, at least in the women's game, of, you want to delay that matchup because as much as the rest of the pack feels like it's catching up, and maybe this year is the most parity we've perhaps seen in a long, long time, there's still only, realistically, it feels like 4, maybe 5 teams that can really, really cut down the nets. And yeah, you don't want to see those in a national semifinal. If you're going to have to play the toughest team, you certainly don't want to see whoever that might be until the championship game, if at all, right?
Right. Meanwhile, again, South Carolina, the number 2 seed, Texas, South Carolina is the number 2 overall, Texas, the 3rd. And so it would be a 3rd matchup between those two in the semifinals. Again, if seeds were to hold throughout the preliminaries. Obviously, it's disappointing. It really is. I'd like to get some feedback on how they came to that conclusion, because we manufactured a schedule that, if done right, it should produce the overall number 1 seed. But I will say this, we're going to make adjustments to our schedule in the future if the standard is the standard. If that's the standard, then we can play any schedule and get a number 1 seed, said Coach Staley. I guess the South Carolina loss to UCLA back in December is what drives that. And also, I think the chairperson of the women's selection committee made mention of South Carolina's 29-point loss to UConn as standing out during their discussions of the Gamecocks. So
other part too is, yeah, we're getting kind of, it feels like more coaching blowback or, griping, so to speak. But this is also the first year that they have ever released the full seeds from 1 to 68. Been doing it for the men for a long, long time. And it is good that they're now doing that for the women's game. But it's also like, yeah, hey, we're pulling back the curtain for the first time. These have perhaps been gripes or complaints that, maybe some insiders knew. But now that everything's kind of transparent, everything's out in the open, which is ultimately better for the game and for the sport, everybody's kind of getting their first real look at it for the first time, saying, yeah, what is the deal here? And I don't blame them necessarily.
Yeah. Everybody seems to agree, though, that the last thing that you want is a particularly motivated South Carolina coming into this thing. And the first team that they are set to face, Tennessee Tech.
Thoughts and prayers.
Yeah. I mean, the Golden Eagles, coached by Kim Roseman, they've had a fantastic season up in Cookeville, and you really feel like it's going to be tough for it not to come to an end over in Columbia.
Can they cover the 42.5 spread, which is posted at the moment?
Oof.
Doesn't feel like it.
It really
South Carolina is got a point to prove. I don't like their chances.
Yeah. I mean, it's bad enough that it's South Carolina, period. But like you said, South Carolina with a point to prove. Yeah, thoughts and prayers might be the way to go with that one.
Mm-hmm. We barely knew ye.
Vanderbilt gets a 7 seed. They've got Oregon. The winner of that one will play the winner of Duke and Lehigh over in Durham. So, this Vanderbilt team with Blake's and Pierre, you kind of got to like their chances in a lot of situations. And I mean, I don't know a whole lot about Oregon, but I like the way this Vanderbilt team is playing under Shea Ralph right now.
Vanderbilt a small favorite, so kind of about what you expect in a 7-10 matchup. So yes, they are a team. Feels like we've said this about a lot of teams, men and women, but they're a team that if they get hot, can certainly take you down and bring you to your knees if you're not careful. But they're still flawed. They're still building, obviously, and they kind of are trending upwards. This will be a fun little tournament for them, and taking care of business versus Oregon will be step number 1, obviously, and then we can kind of potentially salivate. Yeah, if they can get by Oregon, buckle up, Duke. It could be interesting in that second round matchup.
Tennessee did not get a top 4 seed, is not hosting. They are going to Columbus as a number 5 seed. They open against South Florida. The winner will catch either host Ohio State or Montana State. I'm expecting it to be the former.
Yeah, Tennessee, Ohio State, just pretty much go ahead and pin that in. Tennessee's favored by 20, Ohio State's favored by 15. A little closer, perhaps. Shout out to the Bobcats, I guess. But feels like a good matchup. I mean, hey, we already had Tennessee, Ohio State in one playoff format. Let's run it back here in the women's side.
In a game I'll be watching with interest, number 4, Kentucky has number 13, Liberty, coming to Lexington. Liberty, the Conference USA women's basketball champion, after defeating MTSU 53-48 in Saturday's championship game there. So, yeah, go Cats.
Yeah, go ahead and pin them in. Liberty, a good team, but Kentucky should be able to cruise in that one, and that will set up a fun matchup versus Kansas State in the second round as well, you would imagine.
You would think, yeah. No, I don't have the number right in front of me, but it looks like the SEC, though they did not approach 14 teams in the women's bracket, they've got a healthy amount across this 68-team bracket, which kind of speaks to the depth of this conference as well. So, mentioned MTSU's women, they will play in the WBIT at Belmont on Thursday night, I believe. The men are in the NIT. They are taking on Chattanooga tomorrow night over at Murphy Center. So if you want to see the men who dropped a tough one, as we mentioned, in the semifinals on Friday to Jack State. They will be in action at home to open postseason play. They are in the same portion of the NIT bracket with Bradley and North Alabama, which the Lions are going to Peoria for that one on Wednesday. The top half of that bracket is Dayton and Florida Atlantic. That game is on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Dayton is the number 1 seed in that 8-team bracket, so I don't know where they're playing that because Dayton's home court is kind of booked. So, and then you've got Samford playing George Mason, number 2 seed George Mason, on Wednesday as well. So, Middle with a win, I guess, would catch the winner of Dayton and Florida Atlantic, if I'm reading these seeds correctly.
Be nice for them to close it out. It feels like they have had a strong enough season. They deserve, to end on a positive note, and with some contract, kind of lingering out there for Coach McDevitt. He certainly would like to. It'd be nice to stash a little extra hardware in there as you enter a interesting offseason.
Hey, yeah. It seems that there aren't as many power conference teams playing in the NIT this time around. I believe South Carolina turned down a bid. Indiana and Wake Forest both declined invitations. Georgia Tech, Stanford, SMU, and Oklahoma State are the only power conference teams in the field this year. So
a bunch of them, Mo. This is the one to watch. We talked about it months and months ago. The first ever The Crown tournament. They kind of drew in the big names this year. The 16-team tournament that's going to pay out NIL money out in Vegas. They've got Arizona State, Butler, Cincinnati, Colorado, George Washington. Shout out Coach Cooley and Georgetown. The Hoyas will be there. That's going to be the tournament that oddly I'm fascinated to watch. The NIT is a chance for some of these. Yeah. Schools like MTSU maybe not get to test against the real powerhouses because it seems like some of them have opted for Vegas and cash money this year.
Cash money is never a bad thing.
Yeah. Pay them out. We talked about it months ago, and it looks like it's going to go down just like initially it was proposed. So I'm fascinated to see what happens in the college basketball crown, as it officially is known. And Villanova's in there with no coach. I mentioned Coach Byington. There are whispers about him possibly going to Nova. Villanova's going to this thing without a coach right now.
Oh, that's right. I knew Cal Neptune got offed here late last week. So yeah, that'll be worth keeping an eye on, and hopefully Candace Story Lee can get things taken care of so that Byington sticks around for a little bit there. But yeah, that's tough. Columbia State's men are headed to Hutchinson, Kansas for the NJCAA tournament. Their opening round opponent on Saturday will be Triton College out of Illinois. The only thing I can tell you about Triton College is that's where Kirby Puckett played baseball for a year, was NJCAA Player of the Year before he was drafted and signed with the Twins. Hall of Fame outfielder Kirby Puckett. Don't know a whole lot about the Tritons basketball team. I'm sure Winston Neal will learn a lot between now and Saturday. So congrats to the Chargers. Also, congrats to the ladies from Greenfield, Westview, Heritage, and Bradley, who were your girls high school state champions as crowned on Saturday. Greenfield with a 49-46 win over Van Buren County. Westview defeating York Institute 44-38. Heritage downing Northview Academy 63-43. And in the Bradley Central Invitational, the Bearettes with a 70-28 victory over Bartlett in the Class 4A finals. If you notice, conspicuous in their absence, there weren't any Middle Tennessee teams still active on Saturday. I don't know when the last time was that happened, but that's a rough go there.
Yeah, and we started out with a bang on Saturday as Greenfield and Van Buren. You rattled off the scores there. It was an epic showdown to kind of get things kick-started. And then Westview kind of also locked in real tightly versus York. But, it kind of got, unfortunately, a little bit more lopsided, especially obviously in our 4A. Not really that surprised, but Bradley Central, absolutely steamrolling, cakewalking, if you will, their way to another epic performance inside of Murphy Center.
Absolutely. Let's take a break here on Main Street Sports today as we continue the Monday Mirror. When we come back, we'll be joined by Chris Lee of Southeastern 16, talking a little baseball. Stick around.
Hi, I'm Riley, a certified physician associate here at Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee. We have a couple locations, Murfreesboro, McMinnville, as well as Franklin. We treat people of all ages. We're excited to get you back on your feet and hope we can help you today.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
You're seeing the signs too, right?
What signs?
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
The Monday Mirror continues here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton, and we now have with us Chris Lee of Southeastern16.com as we take a look at the first weekend of conference play in the Southeastern Conference on the Diamond. Chris, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon to you.
Hey, 4 teams swept their series this weekend: Tennessee, Alabama, LSU, and Texas. Any of those shock you? I mean, I would think Tennessee, the number 2 team in the country, sweeping number 7 Florida might be a little bit of a surprise, but maybe there's that much of a gap between 2 and 7. I don't know.
Well, look, first of all, Florida was down one of its main starting pitchers, Pierce Coppola. So take that out. Down their second baseman, Cade Curlin. So take that. And none of this to take away from Tennessee, by the way, but to give some context.
Right.
And then they're hard to beat in that place, first of all. And, I mean, look, Tennessee's the best team in the country right now. So sometimes in baseball stuff happens. Like even the 10-0 game was close going into late innings, and he had a bullpen collapse and all that. But I think the one that surprised me was Texas A&M losing 3 games at home to Alabama, an Alabama team that started the year unranked. I keep waiting for the Aggies to figure it out, and so far they haven't. So that one to me was the biggest surprise.
Now, A&M lost somebody for the season early on, right?
Gavin Grohovac, their third baseman, who is potential, before the season when you saw the 2026 draft boards, and this honor is going to go to Justin LeBron at Alabama now, but he was a potential 1-1 pick for 2026. Yeah.
Okay. All right. As you mentioned, Texas sweeping A&M. I'm sorry, Alabama sweeping A&M, Tennessee sweeping Florida, LSU, who was thought to be number one, if not Tennessee, I guess, picked up a sweep as well. 21 overall after that sweep of Missouri, which Missouri is not very highly regarded, are they, Chris?
No, and I mean, I want to say maybe not bad program, just tough league, but I'm not sure that's true based on some of the out-of-conference results. That's a brutally tough job. I really like Garrett Jackson, and I hope it goes well, but I just think they seem to be pretty far behind a lot of other programs and have been for a while.
Now, and you mentioned Garrett Jackson. What is this, his second year?
Yeah.
So their problems predate him, basically.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I mean, look, Missouri, let's go back 15, 20 years ago. I mean, this is the program that produced Max Scherzer. They had a really good run. I think they made 4 or 5 NCAA tournaments in 6 or 7 years right before they joined the SEC. And honestly, I think Missouri a couple of years probably deserved bids that they didn't get. But yeah, didn't get the bids and are still on a drought since they've been in the SEC.
Wow, that's tough. Who were you most impressed with this weekend?
Tennessee, followed by Alabama, I think. Texas sweeping at Mississippi State's pretty good too.
At Mississippi State. Yeah. That doesn't happen every day. Okay. Vanderbilt was in position to take the series down at Auburn, and then came the 8th inning.
Yeah.
That's a tough way to lose one. 2 outs, 2 strikes, and a grand slam puts you up. 0-2?
Oh, and lefty on lefty, no less.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah.
Tough loss for the Commodores, 7-6 down at Auburn. Wrapping up that series after the 2 had split the first 2 games, obviously. But, it feels like, to kind of repeat everything that we've said about football and basketball, it's going to be that kind of year on the diamond.
For the SEC or for Vandy?
For the SEC.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I think this is going to sound crazy. And I might, and look, part of it, some of these teams just pounded helpless teams in the non-conference. And so maybe I should be quick to reserve judgment, but man, it's hard to go unbeaten or with 1 loss this time of the year in baseball, no matter who you play. And I feel like this might be a better league in baseball than it is in basketball, even as hard as that is to believe.
Mark, clip that out. Hang on to that, because we might need to revisit it one way or the other. Either Chris foreboded or Chris was off his rocker, one or the other. But yeah, that's a tough ask to be better than they've been in basketball. But as you look down these standings, it's hard to argue too.
Well, look at the drafts too. Okay, look at the draft lists of players who are headed. Go to MLB Pipeline and look at all the current players, and it hasn't been updated in a few weeks. And then start looking at the commits for last year that got through the draft. Start looking at the players for next year where they're committed, and watch when those guys get through. And I mean, that's probably a pretty good judge of things. go find some computer rankings somewhere, see how dominated it is by SEC teams at the top. I mean, I could be wrong, and I guess we won't know till the last pitch is settled in Omaha. But I keep a pretty close eye on the talent and like how good these kids are and how well regarded they are by the pros and all that stuff. And there's a lot of dudes in this league.
Chris, talk to me real quick about Arkansas. That's a team from our visit with you a couple weeks ago that I've kind of just kept my eyes on and hadn't had to look very far down because obviously they're one of the top teams. But dropped the opener Friday at Ole Miss, but then kind of seems like they not only returned but in a big way. They win the last game, 12-9, but it was a lot more lopsided than that in Sunday's finale. It seemed like.
Yeah, and in Ole Miss's defense, Ole Miss won the opener, had a chance to win one of the other games if the shortstop could have made a basic play that kind of opened the floodgates. And it was a little bit of a weird weekend, wind blowing out at a Swayze Field, which is a hitter's park anyway. But I think that's a team that the pitching, everybody thought this might be the best pitching staff in the country. I'm a little disappointed in their pitching staff. I think a couple of their main dudes haven't thrown up to the standard that I had them to, but there's a lot of time left in the season. But I think the thing that people were worried about was the power. The Alloy brothers have been really good. Brett Iredale, JUCO transfer, who's an Australian, been very good. They've got some other solid hitters in there. Justin Thomas, who's a JUCO transfer. They've got Cam Kozel, who was second baseman at Vandy last year, DH a lot of the year. He's a reserve for them, good hitter. They've got a lot of depth. I think it's a team that's super talented, and I'll be interested to see because if their pitching gets better, which I think it will, their lineup's better, and I think they're a national title contender.
I'm curious about them, and we kind of touched on Missouri, obviously, and we've kind of dabbled with Texas A&M. Is that something we should really be concerned with Texas A&M? But I'm also curious, what do we make of Mississippi State dropping all three of theirs, obviously, this weekend?
Man, I don't know what to do with A&M because if we're going to go on that test of talent that I just talked about, I mean, those guys pass it in flying colors. Maybe the first thing I look at is how do you cover innings on a weekend? They got three starters that could pitch for just about anybody in the weekend rotation. I mean, they're guys that are talented and go deep in games. And their lineup, I know they're missing Caden Sorrell, who's an outfielder, a really good player, a big prospect in next year's draft probably. But, I mean, they got Jace Laviolette. They got Caden. They got shut out on Sunday, guys. You're facing Sunday pitching in the SEC in your ballpark, and you got shut out. What their performance is so far off. And let's not forget, like, when they were everybody's preseason number one. They came within, a big hit of winning the College World Series last year. They lost some key guys off that team, but they had a lot of them back. I mean, that's one of those things where the difference between what they should have been, and they're 10-9 now. They've got an RPI of, I think, 114. We're a month into the season, and change. And I mean, I don't know what's going on there. I can't when a team is that far off what it should be, and it's guys with established track records to some degree. It begs a lot of questions, and I don't know. I will tell you this: betting odds today, they're still, I think, top 10 in the country at Vegas to win the College World Series. So maybe that should tell you something. I don't know. To me, that's the story of the year in college baseball. Like, what is going on there?
Chris Lee of Southeastern 16 joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, talking a little SEC baseball. What's the series that's got you most juiced up this coming weekend, Chris?
Two of them, I think Texas going to LSU. I'm sorry, LSU going to Texas. LSU's number 2 in the country. Texas is on a roll under Jim Schlossnagle. I think the big one is Tennessee-Alabama. Alabama's got one loss. Alabama was preseason unranked. I did not know what to make of them. They got a lot of new faces. I love their coach, Rob Vaughn. I think he's really good. Going to A&M and winning the first 3 was phenomenal. Now they get Tennessee, which is 20 games in the season, has not played a true road game yet. So that, to me, just to see what that looks like, whatever way, whether Tennessee runs them out of the building or whether Alabama wins the series, whatever result we get, I think that's going to be fascinating. And that's the biggest one I've got circled.
Chris, we appreciate you taking some time with us this afternoon, and obviously look forward to catching back up with you as the season progresses.
You bet. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chris.
Man. Yeah. Let's take a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Come back, and we will jump into the grab bag for the final segment of the show. Stick around.
Only in Smashville are opponents welcomed with some good old-fashioned Southern hospitality. We'll give you a hand, cheer you on. You suck! It's all your fault! Hey, we'll even leave a light on.
Forgot that. You know what they say, let's go Stros.
People are amazed at the variety and quality of guests we bring into Main Street Sports Today. But when you've been in this business for nearly 40 years and you never throw away a phone number, it's pretty easy. Right, Wade?
Absolutely.
And Wynn agrees with me.
Check out some of our guests featured on Main Street Sports Today.
Step back and catch my breath. But I expect nothing less from you, big boy. Let's get going.
We make it work pretty good. So
the fans are tremendous. It's fantastic.
It was really amazing.
They call it performance. Yeah.
From preps to pros, you never know who's going to stop by, so be sure to listen to and watch Main Street Sports Today from 2 to 4 p.m. daily on the MSM TV app. The Monday Mirror continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. We're coming down the stretch, as did Hendersonville's Josh Berry out in Vegas yesterday to win his first career Cup Series event. Good for Josh. Obviously, all eyes were on Christopher Bell as he went for his fourth straight Cup Series win of the season, but Barry kind of nudged him aside there. Big win, obviously.
Yeah, great win. Not only to kind of get him, get Josh some mojo rolling, but also to kind of let's cool Christopher Bell off just a little bit here. So kind of feels like all of a sudden things are back, on equal footing. It feels like Bell had dominated for so long, but that is a massive dub for Barry. And, I'm kind of reading through some notes here and just kind of the way he's kind of gone about his business. And he's, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is a guy that's backed this guy for years and years. And so kind of for him to pay off. And also obviously it feels like there was a little more extra attention on this race because of what Bell had done, kind of stealing the thunder in some sense. But somebody's got to win it. Might as well be our local guy.
Yeah, especially since it probably wasn't going to be Bell. I'd seen this prior to the race. Apparently, and Wade, you will appreciate this probably a lot more than I did or do, but Bell had to go to the back of the field because he had to switch out a throttle body after qualifying 13th. And he got up to 12th by the end of the race, but he was coming from the back, and obviously that was going to kind of impact his chances for that fourth straight.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch any of the race, but it sounds like he was complaining about the handling of the car kind of throughout the race. So not only that, was he kind of at the back, but also it seems like the car necessarily wasn't at the best. And, he said it was kind of a grind, which speaks to his professionalism, and obviously it would have been cool. Only 8 drivers, winning 4. in the modern era in a row since, back in the early 70s. There would have been cool, would have been neat, but it felt like once that news came out, it didn't end all the drama, but it certainly kind of felt like it diminished it quite a bit.
Denny Hamlin finished 25th, but he's not complaining because in 2 nights on the slots, he cleared more than 200 grand.
That's one way to do it.
There you go.
Hey, nobody said you had to win all your money on the track when you're out in Vegas, right?
Apparently not. So, yeah, congrats to Denny there with the 25th place.
A little sad though. Didn't take him for a slots guy. Thought he, surely would at least be on the craps table. But I guess everybody's got their own, and that's a little disheartening from Hamlin there. But I can't argue with the payout. He obviously racked up.
No, you can't. Great weekend for Trackhouse. Daniel Suarez finishing 2nd, and Ross Chastain finishing 5th.
Good results for our local, unit here, and kind of maybe hopefully keep some momentum rolling, right? Get good things happen to Trackhouse. It feels like, and if we can just kind of keep stacking it in the right direction, we'll be in good shape.
Ryan Preece finished 3rd. William Byron 4th. Again, Chastain 5th. Austin Cindric and Alex Bowman 6th and 7th. AJ Allmendinger was 8th. Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott finishing out the top 10 there. So, again, congrats to Hendersonville's Josh Berry, the 34-year-old winning his first Cup Series race in his 53rd Cup race. 40-1 underdog Sunday. It's a shame you didn't sprinkle a couple on him, Wade.
Yeah, it would have been nice. Would have helped the payout. Wouldn't have got close to Denny Hamlin money, but it sure would have been nice. Rocking that number 21, just like Elliott Sadler and David Pearson. It was kind of cool to see him and Ricky Rudd, famously for a long time wearing that one or rocking that one too. So very, very nice showing. Now we're obviously kind of keeping tabs on him going forward.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad you didn't get Denny Hamlin money because I kind of want you to stick around, and that might be CeeLo Green money for some of us. So
I lost all my racing money on Saturday night watching the F1 season debut down in Australia. So all that money I had allocated for motorsports was out the window when Max.
We don't see very many golf tournaments go over into Monday, but apparently that was the case for the Players' Championship this weekend as Rory McIlroy went into a playoff that took place today and beat J.J. Spawn to win it, his second Players' Championship victory.
Yeah, I mean, did we really think Rory was going to lose on St. Patrick's Day? Come on now.
All he had to do was get it to St. Patrick's Day.
I mean,
right?
I know it's Northern Ireland, but I mean, my man was still, he wasn't going to go out and lose on this day. There ain't no doubt. And yeah, he absolutely cruised past Spawn. Kind of a wild finish, with Batia and Glover kind of right there in the mix on Sunday, but it comes down to Spawn kind of being right there with McIlroy, and Rory just kind of dusted him off to the side in short order this morning.
It almost looked like Spawn just kind of blew up on Monday.
Yeah,
it's like, how did this guy even get to a playoff?
I mean, he went the other way. He was out celebrating St. Patrick's Day, thinking he had already won the tournament on Sunday night. Little did he know he had to show up and try and take care of business Monday. That was a good win for Rory, and we talked about it last week, right? I mean, he was lurking in the mix, and it kind of looked like, not necessarily Morikawa was kind of right there, but never really made that push that we thought. Scotty obviously kind of was lingering, which is good enough for almost anybody, but especially him. He can make a run from there, but it never materialized. But it was Rory instead that kind of comes out of nowhere, forcing that and then obviously cruising this morning.
Now, was it because of the weather that they went into today, or would they have gone into today anyway? Do we know that?
I believe it was previously scheduled.
Okay. So if there was going to be a playoff, it was going to be
But also, yeah, they were up against it hardcore because Saturday they've had to shut that down a couple of times this week due to weather, so they were already running thin anyway. But I want to say it was previously scheduled.
Okay, yeah, I think they shut it down early Thursday as well.
Right.
So, yeah, that's some pretty wild stuff. And it was it was predetermined that it would be a 3-hole playoff rather than a sudden death playoff, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay. Well, again, like you said,
or like the U.S. Open, they do a full 18 at that point. Every format's got their own, predetermined.
Okay. Well, again, Rory gets it to St. Patrick's Day and finishes things off. Big win for him. We talked a little bit about the Preds during the rundown. Took that four-game win streak into Anaheim, dropped one there, and then turned around and lost to the Kings on Saturday, 1-0. What do we say about the Preds at this point that we've not already said?
I don't know. I'm leaving that up to you because I've said all I can say. They can beat anybody, they can lose to anybody, and they took the latter route this weekend. Tough road trip, tough road swing. Obviously, San Jose is not any good, and LA is better, and obviously in the playoff hunt, if not already confirmed. Yeah, they're basically 99.8% in. I mean, they're officially not in, but Nashville just playing to kind of just continue to, in my mind at least, and can correct us or somebody else can come on and correct us. You're just kind of evaluating what you got and seeing who's potentially either sticking around or needs to be clearing out their lockers sooner than later.
They've got St. Louis coming in tomorrow night at Bridgestone. The Blues 33-28-7. The Predators 25-33-8. So I guess the best thing about this is they are 16 games away from the end of the regular season right now.
Yeah, chance to play spoiler on St. Louis is kind of what you got to hope for if you're Nashville, right? That's a team that is desperate for wins as we come down the stretch in St. Louis. They're trying to battle for every point they can get, and so be kind of a nice little that's kind of par for Nashville too, right? Kind of lose to the teams that really have nothing to play for, and they'll rally and jump up and beat St. Louis tomorrow night.
As you've said, nothing would surprise me.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, man. It's every different night. You never know what to expect. The sooner you accept that, the better the season will be, because I've given up long ago on expectations for these guys this year.
Quiet as it's kept, the Chicago Cubs and the Los Angeles Dodgers are set to open the Major League Baseball season tomorrow in Tokyo. Apparently, the Dodgers will be without starting shortstop and Nashville native Mookie Betts. Mookie has been dealing with an illness for the past week, has lost nearly 15 pounds, according to Dave Roberts. That's rough. Trying to get rehydrated and gain strength. Mookie may fly back to the U.S. In an effort to rest and get ready for their U.S. opener on March 27th. So they're going to play 2 games over in Tokyo tomorrow and Wednesday. They'll go back and they'll kind of resume spring training, and then they will, again, open the season here on March 27th. But man, that's when you're dehydrated, that's what opens a person up to soft tissue injuries. We are very mindful of that, said Roberts regarding Mookie. Miguel Rojas will start at shortstop in his place for these 2 games. Yeah, that's not something you want to mess with. Certainly hoping he gets to feeling better. Want him at full strength to start the season and to get through the season, so when the Braves beat them, there's no excuses.
There you go. Yeah, 5:10 tomorrow morning on Big Fox. Should be fun. Ohtani had an absolute bomb over there at the Tokyo Dome this weekend in their exhibition game.
Showing off for the home folks, huh?
Man, yes, sir. That might still not have landed. That was ridiculous.
Meanwhile, speaking of the Braves, Spencer Strider goes 2 2/3 hitless today against Boston. Of those 8 outs, 6 were by strike out. So He may be a little bit ahead of schedule. They may kind of stick to their mid-May projection just to be safe, but he certainly did not look not ready earlier today. Boston won that game 2-1, scored a couple off of Ian Anderson in 5 innings, who continues to struggle with his control. 5 walks in those 5 innings of work. And if he doesn't break camp with the big club, that's what it's going to go back to probably.
Yeah, this seemingly is not the time. You know, everybody kind of has a feel for what you got and what you're capable of, but you certainly would want to have some better showings on tape than what you saw. But if you're Strider, obviously, if you're a Braves fan, there was so much hope and optimism heading into 2024 after what you saw in 23, and that was robbed from you there. So that's got to be a good feeling, seeing that 6 of 8 to get things rolling.
Without question, yeah. And it was like the young catcher Drake Baldwin didn't have to move his glove on a bunch of those, man. I mean, he looked really good, really sharp, really solid, and it's really a confidence boost, like you said, to see him come out like that. His first game action since April 5th of last year, so not quite a year, but really very solid. Struck out 5.
I love the quote from Chris Sale. He said, "Let's not forget this guy is still the best pitcher on the team." And then Strider comes back and says, "Hey, that guy's delusional. I appreciate his statement, but I don't agree with this." So I love the guys going back and forth, gassing each other up a little bit. Seems like everybody's in good spirits as we get closer and closer to opening day.
That is reigning National League Cy Young Award winner Chris Sale giving out those bouquets. So suffice it to say that having those two going back to back, and then Spencer Schwellenbach probably in the number 3 spot, and Ronaldo Lopez at 4. Good luck to everybody else. I mean, we don't want to get cocky, but
I was going to say that alone right there is going to be a dangerous recipe. The East, we've already talked about Philly and New York. That is going to be a fun race, and it feels like the Braves at full capacity will certainly have it feels like they will have the chance in some ways. It's going to sound weird to say given what we saw last year, but to be kind of dethroned, it feels like they weren't playing with a full deck last year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I saw somebody rank the 30 MLB teams over the weekend. I can't remember who it was, and I've got to start taking screenshots of that stuff. But 2, 3, and 4 were the Braves, Phillies, and Mets, I believe, in that order. So the East is going to be a meat grinder, and hopefully the Braves hold up their end of that bargain. It's tough to think that they won't, with the 26-year-old Strider coming back from his second Tommy John. An internal brace repair to his ulnar collateral ligament rather than the full Tommy John surgery. His second. He had one when he was at Clemson as well. So hopefully he's 100% or heading in that direction, and they are taking every precaution with him. But again, 6 strikeouts in 2 1/3 innings really has to have you feeling good about his prospects going forward. So looking forward to that. Wade, what else has caught your eye here over the last little bit?
Well, I mean, just the fact that March Madness is here is going to be interesting, and I'm a one bracket guy, so I don't have the bracket printed out and formatted just yet. But when we do, that's it. We're going to lock it in, and so I'm pumped for that. I'm pumped for the women's tournament, which is going to be fun and exciting. But I got to be excited about what I saw from my Wolverines, only to be thrust into that matchup, as we mentioned, versus San Diego. But I'm very excited to see, can Lipscomb potentially, after we kind of gassed them up a little bit last week and talked about, 14 seeds maybe potentially doing their thing, can they potentially give a now confirmed depleted Iowa State team a run for their money? That's going to be one matchup that I'm definitely looking forward to We'll be able to watch that one and talk about it live from Murphy Center. They'll be duking it out during our show on Friday. So pumped for that. And then obviously Tennessee on the other end. How quickly can you turn and pivot from getting basically steamrolled by Florida? But I got news. Don't fret, Tennessee fans. Everybody got steamrolled by Florida in Bridgestone Arena last week. I was downtown most of the weekend, and man, there were so many Vols fans. Obviously some disappointed Kentucky fans that were still lingering around, but there were a lot of Florida fans on hand too. So it was an electric SEC tournament. Still never got those real moments that we had talked about last week. Chalk kind of played out in many ways like we had anticipated. And can all those teams, they all can't make the Final Four. They all can't even make the Sweet 16. But how many teams can the SEC potentially put together down the stretch and try and get this thing further solidified as the best conference in the country?
And it's interesting that you say that Florida steamrolled everybody, and you kind of feel like Florida's going to steamroll everybody. I mean, just watching that game yesterday against Tennessee, they can score from so many different places, man, and they move the ball so well, and the least little laps you have on defense, it seems like they managed to take advantage of it. I mean, you know, for all of the off the floor concerns that there are with Todd Golden, he certainly got them ready between the lines.
No doubt. First in offense in KenPom in advanced offense, 10th in defense. They are going to be a force to be reckoned with. And on the other side, I mean, you know, Auburn, who gave Tennessee a really good game, but Auburn seemingly is kind of reeling, right? And coming in, that was the real interesting question for me is, would Auburn be able to hang on as the number one overall seed? And somehow, some way, they did. And I think they got a little bump from the committee by, you know, the SEC and what the SEC was capable of this season. But, man, they really have not been at their best during the last 2 weeks. So they did kind of skid in, you know, on hubcaps and all in as the number one overall seed. But can they regain some of that form? That's going to be massive here for the Tigers.
You know, how much do you think the committee, and we should have asked Jerry about this and just didn't think to because we asked him about so much, but did Duke get dinged for the Cooper Flag situation? Is that how Auburn slipped in there as the number one overall despite losing in the semis?
You know, that's a great question, right? And that's what I said last week. If I'm Duke, I'm saying Cooper Flag. And they kind of hinted as much, right? They said, you know, they didn't go full Kenyon Martin mode and say, hey, he's out for next weekend. They kind of hinted. I mean, he was on the sideline, you know, kind of waving to the crowd and, hey, I might be back. So they kind of at least presented the illusion that he might be back this weekend. But if you're Coach Shire, I don't know how in the world you potentially roll him out, because Duke's good enough to maybe make a run without him, maybe to a Sweet 16, maybe even, dare I say, an Elite 8. But to really kind of get beyond that, they have to have Flag at 100%. And so you need to get that dude 100% or as close to it as possible. If that means one game, for sure. You obviously feel like he's a scratch for your opener. But beyond that, it feels like you need to maybe even hold him out for this weekend and get him to next week.
It's interesting. Obviously, they are the number one seed. They will play the winner of American and Mount St. Mary's coming out of the first four in their opener. If they win that one, their next game would be against the winner of Mississippi State and Baylor. And, you know, you might have to have him for that one, but you got to think he's not going to play in that opener.
Not going to play in the opener. Like I said, I don't I mean, that's not my team and not my call, but the advantage of him, or the disadvantage if he comes back and gets hurt in that extra game versus Mississippi State or Baylor, that almost throws out the entire season at this point. So, you know, you might just have to absolutely roll the dice. And Mississippi State has now crept back. They were initially the underdogs, but Vegas is now flipped it. Mississippi State is a small favorite versus Baylor, so presumably that will be the Bulldogs that gets to meet the Blue Devils in that second round matchup.
That'd be a heck of a matchup.
Which is over in Raleigh. So if nothing else, you got the hometown juice rolling for the Blue Devils there.
And you know, given the Flag situation, they might need all the juice they can get there. So you are a one and done bracket guy, huh?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just do the one, man. I mean, I'll submit, for the proverbial office pool. I maybe fire off a second version just to kind of slip things up for variety's sake. But yeah, print out the one, fold it in the pocket, keep it in the pocket at all times. And then you have the pen, you fill it out, and keep it in your pocket for the duration of March Madness. I don't like to don't use the apps, don't take 30 seconds to tell me who you got in your Sweet 16. I like having the hard copy right there in the pocket for the entire March Madness, and I can produce it at a moment's notice.
Old school. I like it.
Yeah, man, you got to.
I saw something.
Highlight your wins and then scratch out the others with pen, and you're good to go.
With red.
Yeah.
I saw somebody last night said you fill out 3 brackets. One immediately after the bracket is announced, another one after you kind of consider things, and then a third one that's just kind of your wish list of how things would go.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Three is the absolute most, and 3 is only if you're, in several office pools where, depending, it kind of depends on your office pool too. If you've got one, I usually play in one that skews a little Big Ten heavy. So guess what? I'm going to pick a few more SEC teams in that one to kind of throw and win some cheap points that way. Vice versa. The biggest one I'm usually in is SEC heavy. And some years I feast on everybody being homers. In Tennessee, when they crash and burn in the second round, guess who's still standing there at the very end? Yours truly.
There's a method to the madness. Okay, so let me ask you this.
Game theory, we call it.
Do you pick the first 4 games, or do you start with Thursday games?
I don't necessarily like to pick them because most of the time the pool doesn't begin until after, but I will. And that's a great question. The odds of a perfect bracket are 1 in 9.2 quintillion. I wonder if that accounts for the first 4. I wonder if if it includes the first 4. Do those odds jump up to like 1 in 22 quintillion, which is a number so big my brain can't even wrap itself around it. Right?
No, you lose me at quintillion. Actually, you probably lose me before that. Is it trillion and then quintillion? See, I don't even know.
You have a quad in there, right? I don't even know if that's what it's called, but
I don't know. Any math experts come and help us out with this one. What's after trillion? And where does quintillion figure into that? Because we don't know.
Closest anyone ever came was in 2019. There's an Ohio guy, not to be confused with Florida man, but Ohio man, correctly predicted the first 49 games. It ended after the Sweet 16, but that was the longest perfect streak that anybody has ever been on. The odds are not in your favor by any stretch. There's never been essentially a perfect bracket in any of these online contests. So good luck to everybody. Don't overthink it. At the end, especially this year, there's going to be more chalk than ever, it feels like. If you're going to go upsets, you got to go upsets in the first round or 2, and that's it. You got to give the Cinderellas there. You got to take the shoe at that point.
And you got to be careful with your upsets there. I was sitting at a sports bar with a guy some years ago who had Georgetown as his national champion the year they lost to Florida Gulf Coast in the opening round.
Yep. Toss that baby. Just throw that in the shredder immediately.
Just set fire to it. Absolutely. That's going to do it for the Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. We will be right back here at 2:00 tomorrow, continuing to talk sports. We will have Chip Walters, the Blue Raider voice, joining us in the second hour. And I'm sure we'll be talking more basketball because it's that time of year. So come back with us tomorrow. And don't forget, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we will be back at the Glass House, Murphy Center on the campus of Middle Tennessee State University for the boys high school basketball state championships. So stay with us all week, 2:00. We'll be here. See y'all then.